Welcome back to this What Makes a Successful Team in 2024 series with three bold takes. My name is Quinn. I am joined by Freddie and Chase, and today we're going to go into one of the most historic, some would say the team of college football, and that is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish on their 2024 path to the national title. Chase, in your opinion, what does Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish need to do in 2024 to consider this a successful year?
Top six at the end of the season, playing in the quarterfinals. Um, and Quinn, correct me if I'm wrong. So they are not tied to a conference, which means they cannot have a bye. Correct?
Correct.
Brutal. Maybe this pushes Notre Dame to joining a conference at some point. But yes, I think they got to end up top six easily with Notre Dame's schedule. When you look at it, if they're not top 12, I'm looking at different employment options for the head coach, because the schedule it's laughable. I mean, we all three discussed, and it's Texas A&M, Louisville, uh, Florida State, and USC. Like those are the four you could even argue that might be a tough opponent for Notre Dame, and those aren't even really tough opponents. We did a video on Florida State already. We'll probably do one on USC later on. Yada yada yada. And the only reason Texas A&M is such a big one is kind of the entertainment aspect. Former coach versus his former quarterback at Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, and then it's also the first game of the year at Kyle Field. That's the big thing, right? If this game is in November, if this game is later on, maybe it's not as big of a game because Texas A&M is probably going to putter around 8-4, 7-5 for the season. So is this a big game at the end of the season? It probably won't be, but to begin the year at Kyle Field is probably going to be a little tough. Definitely in that Texas heat. But it's simple as that. Notre Dame has to be a top six team, has to be competing for a national championship. You know, they brought in Sam Hartman, they brought in all these guys last year, and it looked like they were going to do it, and then they just kaput. I think there were some injuries along the way, but at the same point, you're not playing in a conference, man. You're an independent. You build out your own schedule most of the time, and usually it's a bunch of ACC teams like that, formerly Pac-12 teams. But you don't you have the ability to make your schedule, and these it's just a poor one this year. Northern Illinois, Purdue, Miami, Ohio, Stanford, Georgia Tech. Come on, it's laughable. Marcus Freeman and them have to be a top six team this year. Freddie,
Wow. So I actually wanted to do this team. I picked Notre Dame because I'm pretty fairly high on Notre Dame this year. Now, obviously, we're going into year three under Freeman here. And year one, they went 9-4, I think it was, and then last year 10-3. Now, when you look at the teams they lost to last year, you've got Ohio State. You don't play them this year. You got Clemson they lost to. You don't play them this year. And you have Louisville, which they play this year. It is at home, and I don't anticipate Louisville being what they were last year. Now, obviously, you add Florida State, right, and you add Texas A&M. Texas A&M is obviously worse than Ohio State. So you win on that schedule swap there. You win if you're a Notre Dame fan. The Florida State and Clemson. Now, I would probably say that Florida State's a hair better than Clemson, but we'll just call it a wash. So if you call it a wash and you play them at home, you don't get them on the road. Like you did Clemson last year. So if we call that a wash and you're one game better than you were last year, what are you?
11-2, Freddie.
You're 11-2. Well, 10-2, and then obviously you would go into the bowl games. 10-2, I think at Notre Dame might get you in the playoffs. It just might, especially if we have some borderline teams playing in conference titles that lose. Which could be a plus for Notre Dame. Now, obviously, it could be a negative if the team that's on the bubble wins. They get the automatic bye. So there are some downfalls to Notre Dame not being in a conference. I think for me, you got to go 10-2 at least. This schedule, dude, I don't think I can stress it enough. Your hardest games, just like Chase said, obviously, at Texas A&M. That's the first game of the year, all right? I would assume that you're going to win that game. I just want to go ahead and assume that. And then, your next tough road game is at Purdue. Like, they're pretty tough on the road, but, it's Purdue at the end of the day. At Georgia Tech, now they've gotten better over the past couple of years. They're no longer that Vandy walk-all-over team. However, you should be able to win that easily. And then at USC at the very end of the year. So, you got to at least go 10-2. By the way, it's very interesting that Notre Dame plays both Army and Navy this year. That's pretty interesting. Both are on the road. Well, not really on the road, I would say. Like, they play Navy at MetLife Stadium, which I guess is technically on the road, and then Yankee Stadium against Army. So, interesting stuff there with the Notre Dame schedule this coming year with the lack of tough games and interesting playing sites. So 10-2, and you have to make the playoffs this year. Brian Kelly, he was notorious for making big games and losing. It's what he did. So now that he is gone, I would hope they would be able to get over the edge there and actually win a playoff game or something that is significant. So 10-2 is my mark. Quinn?
Yeah, y'all already hit on some of this. I want to start by looking at that schedule. I have 5 games that I circle as like watchable games. At Texas A&M, I think you're better than them. You should handle that game. I am worried for you playing in August in like outside of Houston, Texas. That's going to be tough on Notre Dame just from the humidity and the weather. But as far as talent goes, I think they're a better team. You got the at Purdue game. I think that could be a trap game. It's a rivalry game. Purdue is infamous for what they can do to teams when they come in there. Think the trap that Notre Dame fell in when they went to Louisville. You got the Louisville home game. I think you should win that. I don't think you have that raucous atmosphere working against you. The Florida State home game, that one I would favor Florida State, but I think you can get in that game strictly off the merits of being at home, and then the road trip to USC, who I think you're better than. All that being said, no doubt in my mind, this Notre Dame team should be in the college football playoff. If you fall short of that, I think that's a disappointment, strictly because I think you are much better than the teams on your schedule. Now let's talk about the college football playoff. Freddie, you mentioned Brian Kelly's infamous for getting to a major postseason game and losing. It's not just Brian Kelly. It's just Notre Dame in general. Fun fact for you, since 1998, when the BCS was invented, Notre Dame has appeared in 8 major postseason games, whether that's a BCS Bowl, New Year's Six Bowl, playoff, national title game. LSU has also appeared in 8 postseason games. LSU ranks out, when you divide up these points, as like the 3rd best program legacy score-wise behind Alabama and Ohio State, who both have up in the 20s of total games they've played in major postseason settings. Notre Dame has 25 points to LSU's 96 because Notre Dame is 0-8 in major postseason games. I bring that up because this has got to stop. Look, you're not going to get – Notre Dame is not going to get a first-round bye because they're not in a conference. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to the conference champions of the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and the Big 12, right? So you're going to be in that first round no matter what you do. To my understanding, I don't believe they can take the ACC's place as the ACC representative. So you're going to have to play in that 5 through 12. And if you're 11-1 or 12-0, you're presumably getting that game at home. All right? You have to win that. You have to finally win a major postseason game. If Notre Dame gets a home playoff game against a team that is ranked at the highest 9, they should not lose that game. I would give up on Notre Dame altogether as a legitimate postseason team for the rest of time. I'm done. If you hit 0-9 and you couldn't even win a major postseason game in your own stadium, and you wouldn't be playing, presumably you wouldn't be playing the likes of a Georgia in that round, I don't know where you go from here. So for me, you have to get to the quarterfinal round. I need to see Notre Dame actually win something in the postseason for once. That is my That is my requirement for a successful 2024. I think the field is laid out for you to get a home game in the first round of the playoffs if you succeed to the level that I think you should against your schedule. And if you fail to come back with anything to say for it, other than we made the playoffs and got beat at home by, I don't know, Kansas State, that's not a success to me. So
Right.
make the playoffs and win at least one playoff game. It's my requirement for Notre Dame.
And before we hop off real quick, Notre Dame only has three true away games this season. There's three neutral sites games this year, which is insane. I don't think I've ever seen on one singular schedule three neutral site games. Usually it's about one or two, depending on rivalries or whatnot. But yeah, so they don't even get truly tested with an away atmosphere, but three times, and it's the first and last games is the two big ones. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there before we hopped off.
Yes, and that's another good point. You only have three legitimate road atmospheres that you got to play in this year. That everything, like I said, is on a silver platter for you to succeed this year. So now we just got to see if Freeman and the Irish can take it on. But guys, we thank you for clicking in on this video. We got a whole bunch just like it on the channel. We've been discussing multiple teams and their outlook for 2024. So if you like what you saw here, comment, subscribe, and check out the rest of the videos. That being said, I'm Quinn. I've been joined by Freddie and Chase. We're Three Bold Takes, and we'll see you next time.